This is Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. When I think about the critical issues facing Black and Brown residents in the St. Louis area, I often ask the questions: how did we get here? What's holding us back? And how do we progress? At 9 PBS, we want to deepen our understanding and change the narrative. Join me as I look for answers and discover solutions on today's podcast.
The following episode contains sensitive content that may be distressing or triggering to some listeners. We hope that this discussion fosters meaningful conversations, reduces stigma, and promotes understanding.
Census data shows that Black residents in St. Louis are nearly 4 times as likely to be unhoused as white residents. Today on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, we talk about homeless youth in our region with a woman who says she went from church girl to homeless drug addict. She knows firsthand how we got here and what it will take to ensure young people don't fall victim to the streets. That's today on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough.
Welcome to another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. It's right there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for downloading, for sharing the podcast, for liking the podcast. I saw a young man today, and I said to him as he was leaving 9 PBS after a meeting, I said, make sure you subscribe. He goes, already. So have you already? If you haven't, do subscribe. You can also share the podcast, and we love your comments, even if it is great information. We love the comment because that tells us we're on the right path. And if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, someone you think we ought to be talking to, let us know that as well. This is an important discussion, everyone is, that we have on Listen St. Louis. The National Alliance to End Homelessness says every single night in America, thousands of young people experience homelessness without a parent or a guardian, and they go to sleep without the safety, stability, and support of a family or a home. While the statistics are not precise, some experts believe that here in St. Louis, the percentage of unhoused who are under the age of 24 is as high as 40%. Let me say that again. The percentage of unhoused in St. Louis who are under the age of 24 is as high as 40%. Again, those stats are not precise, but what it tells my heart is that too many young people are on the streets without a parent, without a guardian. Imagine 16 years old on the streets without a mom, without a dad, without a grandma. Imagine that. My guest today is Angela Coleman. In July of 2024, she will celebrate 21 years clean and sober. Can we just stop right there? 21 years clean and sober. That's even more remarkable because for 14 years of her life, she was one of those people on the streets without a home. Angela, thank you so much for joining me on Listen St. Louis.
Thank you for inviting me, Miss Carol.
So we've been together for what, an hour and a half now?
We've touched a lot of bases,
Yes, we
with
have.
things and topics before we even got started.
I'm so glad to have you.
I'm
And
so excited to be here.
what I wanted, that statistic, which I learned like 2 years ago, has been ringing in my head and my heart since then. And when I came to 9 PBS and we launched Listen St. Louis, I said to you, I want to have the conversations that I want to hear.
Right.
And the way we've talked about homelessness, the unhoused, we don't always talk to the person
Right.
who was in that circumstance, how they got out of it. And so that's why I'm so honored to have you here today. Can you take us to that time in your life when you found yourself either homeless, couch surfing, on the streets?
Absolutely. So my life didn't start that way. I was raised in home, church girl. Mom taught me everything, very female-led home. And at about 21, 22, I started, dibbling with drugs. And that's what led me to homelessness. I lived on the streets for 16 years. And one of the things that I realized was I didn't come from that background. I didn't come from watching people get drunk and pass out and being high. And I didn't deal with that in our family. We had a very, a pleasurable childhood, And I guess the thing for me was learning how to adjust was an extreme. It was extreme because I'd never experienced any of that. So it was like this church girl had been plucked out of church and set into the streets, and that was oh God, it was a very different feeling to get to that point.
How did you and why did you begin using drugs in the first place?
I'm a substance abuse counselor now, and I've been doing that for like 19 years, and I would always help so many people. With their understanding of how they arrived there. And I always ask myself, well, Angela, how did you get there?
Right.
And about 7 years into counseling, I realized that I got there because I suffered from extreme low self-esteem. As a child, I was the first granddaughter, the first niece, and I was extremely spoiled. And it was, oh my God, it's beautiful, Angela. Oh, this is beautiful, Angela. Let Angela do this. And I always got my way, and I was always, like put on a pedestal.
And you got a lot of positive attention.
Yes,
So
till I went to school.
What grade are we talking about school?
Oh, this was first beginning of school.
Oh, elementary.
Right. I realized I was not the cutest. I didn't have the longest hair anymore. I wasn't put on this pedestal at school. And I started to notice flaws about myself as I stayed, as
comparison took over.
Right. And then the children are mean.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's Angela. You got those big old lips, and this right here, and that hurt my feelings and things. So as I advanced into high school, I realized that I didn't fit in anywhere. I wasn't in the pretty girl clique. I wasn't in the sports clique. I wasn't in the smart kids clique. So I was kind of like on the island of misfit toys, and it opened myself up to finding other friends. Like I found friends that were very popular. I had this craving to be popular.
Every child wants to be, or every adult, every human being wants to be seen.
Right.
Yeah.
So once I would meet friends who were very popular, and then I would kind of make their friends my friends. But in that crowd of the people that I were picking, they were using drugs. So it was like I got caught up in it.
Right.
Just, hey, try this. And that was all it took.
And you said to me that your family, you said, I had mother, sister, grandmother, people who loved me, but they became afraid of you.
Absolutely. I can remember one time specifically, I went over to my mom's house, and my mother is my number one fan. She sits on my board for my business. She supports
Which we would talk
me.
about, yes.
Yeah, she sits on my board. She's right there, And I remember I came to her house one day. I told her I was hungry, but I was trying to probably get a couple of bucks. And when she opened the door, my daughter opened the door, and she closed the door. She slid the lock, and she pushed the button down.
Oh, my.
So I'm talking to my mom between her and me. She and I was the bars to the door. And I was like, wow, Mom, I'm hungry. And she was like, stay here. I'll get you a sandwich.
So at this point, you were already addicted.
Oh, God, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What
yes.
had they seen? What behavior were you exhibiting?
Well,
trying to get your high.
Well, one of the things, I was a good mother. I loved my mother. I mean, I loved being a mother. I had 2 children. My son was born with cerebral palsy. Now, that was not due to me being on drugs. And then I have a daughter. She's 38 now. Oh, my God, I'm getting old.
Well, so is she.
I'm maturing. Okay. Right. So she's 38. And I was never home with my children. That was a big thing. I would be gone for months. I'd be gone for weeks. I'd be gone for days, And I think the biggest thing was when they were looking for me one day and they couldn't find me. So my sister was like, I'm going to go over here to this drug house where she's at all the time. So she came in the house and she was like, I'm looking for Angela. Of course, I'm like, no, I'm not here. I'm not here, you know. And I said, well, she's not here. And she said, well, tell her that she needs to hurry up and come home. Her son's sick. I'm caught in the grips. I'm caught in the grips of the disease of addiction. I can't get up from the table. Finally, I do go get my son. I go and I wait because I'm getting checks from public aid. His first check has come, or the disability check has come. So I'm still riding around in a car. He's sick, I guess. You know, he didn't look sick. He had this really strange blue circle
How old
around
was he
his
then?
eyes. He was 9.
Okay.
And we're riding in the car, and instead of taking him on over to the hospital, because I'm thinking sick, you know, just sick, like cold.
Like cold.
And, you know, so I'm circling around, and we're still trying to find crack, and I'm trying to find crack to take to the hospital, and, you know.
You
and,
are trying to find crack to take to the hospital.
Yeah, so I could have some dope when I went to take him. That's how sick
Yeah.
this disease had me. And in the process, he ended up dying in the backseat of the
Oh,
car.
my Lord, Angela.
Yeah, that was so traumatic. I think that spiraled me completely out of control, worse than I ever was.
What did that do with the relationship with your mother and with your daughter?
My daughter was like 5.
So she didn't know.
So she really didn't know. She knew she had a brother.
But your mother.
Oh, my God, my mother blamed every second of that on me, and it was my fault. And, you know, I had 2 years clean, and she told me, she said, Angela, I blame you for Dwight's death. And I had gotten out because my girlfriend, who was a nurse, she told me what happened, he aspirated. And she told me, she said, even if you had gotten him there, he would have still passed away because there's not a little vacuum cleaner to go in there and clean out his lungs. So
Did you, I know the answer to this, did you blame yourself? And what did that do
absolutely.
to your addiction?
Oh, it kept me out there. I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to move forward with my life. I just felt like I was nothing, even though I had another child that needed me. I couldn't get past this one that I felt like I had killed, you know, that it was my fault. So I ran away.
Like physically and mentally, you ran away.
Like physically, I ran away. I went, I got a hotel room, and I sat in there, and I smoked every single second of every single moment that I was in there, and I just didn't want to come out. I didn't want to face the world. I didn't want to face my family. And I called my mom, and finally, and I said, Mom, she says, Angela, where are you? We miss you. We want to be here for you. And that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard my mom say to me, other than she was proud of me, you know. So
Even after blaming you.
even after that, but you know, emotions were high.
Yeah.
Emotions were
A
high.
child has died.
Right. My mother's a very Christian and spirit-led woman, and she knows that God has his own perfect plan for things, you know. And she eventually told me that she didn't feel that way, and that all that was over, and she forgave me for all that had happened. So
So you were 21 when you start using. When did you
22.
22.
Mm-hmm.
When did you become unhoused? When were you without shelter?
Oh my. It started, I
And
guess.
did you get evicted? Is that what led to
Oh,
you?
absolutely.
Okay.
It started about 3 years into my addiction.
So you're in the mid-20s now.
Mid-20s, and I ended up, you know, like taking the kids here because I'm seeing myself. I was getting public assistance, so I'm seeing myself take all the food stamps, spend them, and then go to, you know, pantries and try to get food, and the kids are hungry and, you know, guilt-ridden, you know, and I'm sitting here and I'm trying to give them a big bowl of cereal with a gigantic fork, and I'm telling my daughter, my baby, to feed her brother, you know, and the human part of me hadn't left yet.
Yeah.
Because it's an animalistic level that takes over. And the human part hadn't left yet, hadn't gone yet. And I found myself feeling sorry. I found myself feeling bad. And I said, hey, take my daughter. I took her to her dad's family, and I gave my son to his father, to his dad's family. And I said, you need to raise him because I don't know what I'm doing anymore, you know.
How old were they then?
She was about 5. No, she was about 3.
Okay.
And he was about 7 or 8.
So he knew more than she did
No, he was the one with cerebral
with cerebral palsy.
So he could see and hear,
Okay.
but he couldn't move.
Okay.
So he could think, but he couldn't move.
What did it do to you? Because I feel like that's a twofold, one could have a twofold reaction. That it was so mature of you to take your children to their fathers. It was so wise of you. But then the devastation of realizing I can't do this. I can't be the mother. You said early you love being a mother. But at a point you said, I can't do this.
You know, I would love to be able to give you some really eloquent feelings and thoughts as
You
it
do not
related
have
to
to.
that.
You give me
And
the real.
You know, and tell you, hey, Carol, it was just devastating. But the thing was, and this is my truth, is that they were in the way. They were in the way. My daughter, and I love her to death, she was always very, very super smart. And she could just, you know, I taught her how to dial. Remember, they used to have the speed dial. It was
Yes.
really popular. So I said, Grandma is 2. And I hear her on the phone, Granny, my mama's in the room with somebody and she won't come out. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. And then I'm on the phone, Ma, she's tripping, you know. And
You taught her to call grandma, so
I
she did.
and she told all the time, but she had the right to.
Yeah.
You know, she was 2. She was confused. She didn't know what happened to Mom that, you know, scooped ice cream and bought all the toys, and she had her special treats. To now, we don't have anything, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to eat a bowl of rice and hot dogs again, you know. So that was one of the reasons. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was trying to be protective of them. Maybe in the back of my mind it was, but I think in the forefront of my mind it was more like, they are in the way. I can't move like I need to, you know. And then I came up with the plan of what can I do with them that would be safe. So that was kind of like the second part, not the first part.
And what was that the plan, to take them to their fathers?
Yes, yes.
Did you often did you come close to dying more than once?
Of course, living those streets, a lot of prostitution. It was a lot of homeless, street walking, strangers. And yes, I have been raped several times, gang raped. I have been beat, robbed. I've never been cut and stabbed or shot or any of that. But just the whole lifestyle. And that's what I'm saying. When you make that decision that this is what I'm going to have to be, it's like you prepare yourself
For the trauma.
for the world and the trauma that comes with that. And, you know, on times when I would be raped, I would be like, well, you know what, Angela, this is how you're living. You know, this is the lifestyle that come. This kind of like goes with the lifestyle. Like working a job, you get a check. Prostitution, you get raped. You know, so
Addiction, you get robbed.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So I had kind of like lined them up into this world of, this is how you're going to have to do this.
I have to stop and say what we often hear if you've gone to church any amount of time, that you do not look like what you've been through.
Thank God.
Let me say, you do not look like what you've been through.
Thank you.
What was the moment? And maybe there were many moments where you felt, okay, I'm coming out of this. And then you would slide back in.
Oh, God.
And then there might be another moment where you felt, I can do this. And then you slide back in. Were there many moments?
Oh, my God. I went to treatment probably over 20 times.
Oh, my gosh.
And I would love to say I went each time because I was ready to do this. But no, I went sometime because I was sick of Mom. You know, then I was feeling bad about the kids. And then sometimes I went because I was running from somebody I had stole some stuff from. Then sometimes I went because I truly wanted to stop using. And they were all failed attempts. You know, a lot of them were all failed attempts.
I'm so honored by your transparency because, and I said this to you earlier, and I said this earlier, that we're having the conversations that I've always wanted to hear as a journalist with 40 years of
Right.
experience, that when you listen to your average newscast, it's 60 seconds, it's 3 minutes, and then you never hear again.
Right.
And I always wonder when I see whatever the story is, how did they get to that point? And which is one of the central questions of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. How did we get here?
Right.
And even though you're in your 20s, what strikes me again is that there are teenagers who are out here.
Absolutely.
Yes. And you have been able now, because you're with Places for People, which is how we connected. And we'll talk about what you do there in a moment.
Okay.
But for the teenager, they don't have maybe they do. It might not be addiction. It might be runaway situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk about
Absolutely.
what teenagers in St. Louis, more likely to be Black in St. Louis, who are on the streets with no mom, no dad, no grandmother. How is that happening? How did we get here? There's a lot of reasons.
Absolutely. I was going to say that falls from a vast variety of reasonings. But I do believe that in this situation with homelessness, that it's like God puts these little nuggets in our life, like these little saviors. You may not, and you may have seen like two homeless people. One has $1, the other one has nothing, and they decide to give, the one with the $1 decides to give the other one 50 cents. So it's kind of like this civilization that takes care of their own. You know what I'm saying? So you'd be surprised how somebody will take in another homeless person, will take in a homeless teenager and help them, and help them become not as poor, not as broke. But then also the children homelessness is homelessness. And that's what it is. Okay?
Right.
It's not a thing of homeless level 1, homeless level 2. It's homelessness. And there are rules that go with it.
Oh.
Just like there are rules that go with your job, there are rules that go with substance use. There are rules, and you have to learn how to play by the rules.
What are some of the rules of
It's
homelessness?
like, if say for instance, if it's like kind of turns into this thing where it's a teamwork, but now it's every man for themselves.
Okay.
You have to always stay in survival mode. Everybody can look like a victim, you line yourself up with, and a lot of that stems from trauma, understanding your level of trauma.
And when you say everybody can look like a victim, am I supposed to be on alert that you might victimize me? What does that mean?
Not so much as
Okay.
that, but it's like, okay, I can use myself for an example.
Okay.
When I was, in the streets and homeless, I would look at and I would say, what can I get from this person? Not so much to hurt you, but like, does
I'm
this
trying to
lady
survive.
look like, right,
Yeah.
but does this lady look like she'll give me $2?
Okay.
Have you noticed when people are begging on the
Yeah.
streets or panhandling,
Yes.
that they may skip over this person, but they'll come to you?
Right.
Or they may skip over this gentleman, but they come to her. Because it's like she seems like she'll give it to me.
Right.
That type of thing. And maybe victim isn't the right word to say. It's more like, because that's words that we used in the streets, it's more like a victim. But more, I'm going to say, as a person who would be more willing to help.
When did you decide that the trauma you'd experienced would be something you would then use to help others? Because you could have gone on with your life once you had gotten out of the life of
Absolutely.
addiction, of trauma, of homelessness. You could have decided that I'm just going to get stable
Absolutely.
and live my life and get a good job, and I'm never going to be homeless again. And I'm
Right.
never going to be an addict again. But you decided to move into the nonprofit world and to help others. Why did you decide to do that?
That was a God thing. That had nothing to do with me. I had gone to prison, and when I was in prison, I found God in a more in-depth way. And it's real easy to have church religion. And I understood that, even though I had known God my whole life. But it's easier because you don't have the distractions,
Right.
and you have an opportunity to go to church 7 days a week, and you can go to Bible studies, and they have big church. So I have really gotten into this and really in touch with God. And I'm so sorry, I forgot that question.
Was why did you decide? I'm so
Okay,
glad I remembered the question.
Right.
Lord, thank you. Why did you decide?
Okay, so when I got out of prison, I was just really saved and, really
What were you in prison
trusted.
for? Quick.
Forgery.
Forgery. Okay,
Well,
go ahead.
actually, I was on probation in 2 states and then caught another case. So I got out and I was like, okay, I'm going to live right. And I was living right and I was doing things and I was really involved with the church. And then I relapsed one day and I was standing on the corner and I was crying and I was crying and I was crying. And I said, God, I'm so sorry. Do you hate me? And a lady passed by in a van. I had no clue who she was. She just shouted out the window. She said, Angela, God says he loves you.
My goodness.
Total stranger.
And she knew your name?
She knew my name. I had no clue who this lady. Do you know how many people who knew me had pulled over, stopped, gave me hugs, talked to me, prayed with me and everything. But this lady just shouted out and said, Angela, God says he loves
And
you.
you had just asked
I had
God, do
just
you
asked
hate
him,
me?
do he hate me? And at that point, I remember on that corner, I said, God, I say, if I ever get through this, I want to be able to be a guiding light for other people. And I had forgot that prayer. And here I sit.
And here you sit.
Here I sit. It was like this burning desire that had, like this flame had been lit up in me. And it was so crazy because when I was, I got clean and I was like, okay, God, if this was all you got me to, clean for to do was to work in factories. And I said, I'm probably not going to stay clean. I'm going to use again. And he told me, he said, go to school. And now it's like, okay, God, this is Angela. Okay, I've been out of school 25 years. I was on drugs 16 years. My mind, he was like, I know who you are. Go to school. So I go to school. He takes me through this whole process, and I'm in the registration's office, and I'm like, okay, God, I'm here. What do you want me to do? And I heard nothing. It was silent. All this said brought me all the way, step, and now it was absolute silence. And so I'm looking around because I'm next. I don't know what to tell the people. God is shut down on me. And I'm looking around, and it was a stack where they put the little flyers. And one said addictions counseling, and it glowed yellow like that freedom sign. And from that day to this one, this is all I do. I do it every day.
So y'all, when God is silent, you supposed to be looking.
You hear me?
You're supposed to be looking.
Doesn't mean he's not working.
He's not working.
That's right.
He
Doesn't mean
already
he's not-
brought you.
You hear me?
Walked you into the place.
That's it. That's it. And
You
that
want to, God, what do I do? And there's a doorknob right there.
twist it. Come in. Come into that place.
Keep on walking.
You heard
All
me?
right,
Just
okay.
come on in.
We didn't know he was going to have church, but I'm always ready.
I agree. Stay ready.
Stay ready. Stay ready. So did you then go to that
School.
coursework?
I did. And now
And let me read it correctly. You are a substance use specialist on the Assertive Community Treatment Team
absolutely.
for Places for People. And Places for People is?
Places for People is a non-for-profit organization. We help probably a little bit over 3,000 people yearly over their lifespan, some of them, and of all ages. Been around for 52 years. We get out there, we meet the client where they are. So we're not trying to find them coming into the door. We have to go out. We have
Right.
an awesome outreach program. We go find them under the bridges. We are the ones who go and get them by the dumpsters and out of the doorways and hallways of buildings that are abandoned. So we get out our outreach team. We go out and we find those people and we bring them in and we help them grow. We help them mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We are affiliated with a lot of different programs that we kind of like sistered with, I guess.
Partnered with.
Right. Well, we know them, they know us. And if we call them, they're there for us, to assist our people. We're connected with different housing programs and we're connected with hospitals and different things. So when you hear Places for People, we are working.
Boots on the ground.
Boots are on the ground.
Tell me, Angela, you are the perfect person And let me say this: so people often know, how do you find the people that you find? They often wonder that. And I started with the staff here at 9 PBS. I sent out a general email: does anybody know somebody who? And I got a handful of answers, and one of them was Places for People, and then connected with Places for People, and we've been working for a month to get to you.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so one of the things that I always want to know is, what do we not know? What are we getting wrong about dealing with, whether it is addiction, and addiction is so closely married to
Absolutely.
the unhoused and the homelessness. What are we getting wrong about it? What I'm asking you too many questions. That's not a good journalistic behavior, but
I got you, though.
thank you.
I think one of the things as a human race,
Yes.
that we are looking at this thing as a look at that person,
Right.
or look at him, or look at her, but we're not looking at it as look at that human being.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's one of the great things I love about Places. We look at that human being. You see,
The eyes of judgment.
there's no eyes of judgment.
Yeah.
You know, color is blind. We're looking at that human being. And, you know, if everybody in the world put together one sandwich, we would not have homelessness. I mean, hunger. You know, so I think what's missing is people are not looking at and identifying the human part of this. It's like they want to be. You know, now why are they still wearing it?
I so want to, yeah. So let's talk about answer that question. And as someone who was in talk radio for the majority of her career, that is a common comment on call-in shows around the country. Is, well, you know, some people just want to be homeless.
Nobody
and you
wants
certainly
to
do
live
hear,
like that.
if you take a microphone out, you know, some people say, I like it out here.
But you know why I think that they say that? Is because they may have tried it here. But you figure you've been over here 20 years. You've been over here in homelessness for 20, 25 years. You've been locked in substance abuse for 15, 20 years. Then when you come over here, this becomes a very strange and unusual place. And I'm going to tell you, when I got through using drugs, now before, I was a mom, I was a great housewife, I was a sister, I was a daughter, and I transitioned to someone that was afraid of people, where my family was afraid of me. I had no friends other than the ones on the street. And I just became like this, I don't know, like a monster, I guess, over here. I had taken on this whole new personality, lifestyle, way of living.
Which you have said is really just survival.
Absolutely.
So it's not really who you are.
No.
You're
It's
just
who I've turned into.
trying to survive.
That's right. Trying to make it still.
And my statement is one that I think when I hear you talk about looking at the human being, my statement is the human being is compassionate.
Absolutely.
And I won't stop at she's a monster. I will then, the next step, if I'm a human being, I'm going to see you that way, then I am going to have an understanding.
Absolutely. And then we look at people and we see us. We're looking normal. We're
Right.
looking like the norm. And then you see people who are not looking like normal in our eyes.
Yeah.
But in their world, they look normal.
Talk about your business.
Oh my God. So, as you know, I do substance abuse 24 hours a day. This is what I do. I love it. I'm going to say this, but Places, I love my check. But I could do this free every day.
Okay, I get it.
I love my check.
Such
So-
impact.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So I've been working on this ministry. My ministry is I have recovery groups that I put into my church. And I'm trying, the goal I believe that God put me on was to put these ministries in different churches. It's not religious, it's spiritual based. It's not a 12-step program. So, and then also it comes with the Becoming Me Recovery Center. which we are an agency that will be up and coming. Right now, we are providing services. I do things like I help people get into treatment, case management, help them find recovery housing. We offer groups. I do 24-hour relapse prevention, meaning that you can pick up my phone. That card I give people, you can call me at any time, and I can help you not use, don't leave treatment,
Right.
whatever you need at that point. We do prayer, 24-hour prayer lines. Sometimes we just need to make it through. To then we are up and looking at other or other areas to venture into once we get a building.
Okay.
Okay, so we are out there, www.becomingmerecovery.org. That's our website. Please feel free to get on there, contact, even if you want to talk about some fears that you may have from your child.
Right.
My mother experienced me.
Right. And she was afraid of you.
Yes, she experienced my experience through drugs and alcohol. She has a wealth of information of how to help a parent move through that. So we all work together in trying to make everything happen at Becoming Me. I'm going to say this and I'm going to shut down real quick. I picked that Becoming Me was because when you cross into addiction, into homelessness, and all these despairing situations, you lose who you are.
Right.
You have to learn how to become you, because you take on so many identities and roles that this lifestyle that you're living makes you become in order to survive. So what we do at Becoming Me is we allow and help you to become the me that you
truly
born to.
are.
That's right.
That you truly are.
That you truly are.
What is your message to those who are listening and watching who have no experience with this, but they see it and don't know what to do?
I think my message would be to get involved.
Yeah.
Find a way to help. And I think people think you got to help a billion people. If it's one.
Right.
If you see somebody with that needs that sandwich, buy them a sandwich if you can afford it. That $1, is it really going to hurt you? That 50 cents, people say, well, they're buying drugs with it. How do you know? Take that vision of them and put it on your child. How would you want someone to treat your child if they were out there? Show our compassion and our hope and our love for our fellow man and men and women. Reach out and be that loving human that you were developed and made to be.
And how is your relationship with your mom and your daughter now?
Oh my God. Those are my daughter's my best friend. My mom is my number one fan. I love my mom. She's helping me with my math course. So
because you're getting your associates?
Associates.
Yes.
I'm finally getting my letters right behind my name.
Well, I will say it again. You do not look like what you've been through.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Angela, it's been a joy talking to you. Angela Coleman, who is with Places for People. She is a substance use specialist on the Assertive Community Treatment Team. And I love the title.
Oh, God, it's great.
Because we are not passive treatment team.
Right.
We're the assertive.
Right. We make it happen.
We make it happen. With Places for People. And we thank you so much for what you're doing and for standing in the gap for others who truly, truly do need you in St. Louis.
Thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Absolutely. We've taken 1,000 pictures.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's Places for People, and you can find them online for sure.
Absolutely.
And we thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. We want you to comment if you missed something. If you want to get a hold of Angela, we will make that happen. If you want to get involved, as she recommended, we can walk you in that direction as well. And let us know what you think of what you heard here. Did something change your mind when you see people who you identify as being homeless or unhoused? Has something changed your mind about what Angela said to you today? Maybe you are now going to see them as human beings. If that happened, Angela's done her job for sure.
Absolutely.
So let us know what you think of today's podcast. Don't forget to download, to like, and to click the subscribe button. We love our subscribers and we appreciate your support. We'll be back next week with another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough.